Hey, boss, here come the Marauders.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, broadcasting from the Studio Simon Stumper headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan, good morning. Hello, how you doing?
Good morning to you, Paul. I am fantastic. What's new with you?
Well, I am just back. As listeners of this podcast will know, I am just back from Baseball Palooza, and it's the best time of the year for me. It's baseball Christmas for me, and I love it so much. Already planning for next year's Baseball Palooza, checking schedules as they're coming out. Some of them are out, some of them I'm waiting for. At one point, I actually did call a team to see if they were going to be home on a certain date, just to start that planning. So Baseball Palooza 2026, our 10th Baseball Palooza. Not our 10th anniversary, but our 10th Baseball Palooza will be next year.
Yeah, it sounded like you guys had, as I guess always, a really great time. When I say it sounded like it, I just finished listening to the episode, your Baseball Palooza episode. I finished listening to it this morning on my walk to work. And I have to say, I was surprised and pleasantly surprised to hear when you asked your fellow baseball palooza,
The Baseball Paloozers.
John, what were some of the memorable things he experienced in his years on these road trips? And one of the things he said was your visit to my studio. And then he also praised my breakfast place recommendation, Wild Eggs, which is I guess a local, not so much, well, I guess it is a chain because they have several locations, but I don't think it's a widespread chain. There are several of them in Louisville or the Louisville area. And yeah, it's a good place to go to breakfast.
Dan, I'll tell you a place that we've never been for Baseball Palooza is Florida. We've never done the Florida State League. We're going to be talking on this episode about the Florida State League's Bradenton Marauders. It's a brand that you created way back in like 2010, I think, Dan. Like this has been around for about 15 years, this Marauders logo. It's a fun one. It's a pirate-themed one, which seems to be something of a thing in baseball these days.
Your date is correct.
Oh,
I did the work in 2009 and it debuted on field in 2010. So good on you. So when you just said pirate seems to be a thing, I think there's only two pirate identities in affiliated minor league baseball. Tell me if I'm wrong. You have the Bradenton Marauders and the Erie Seawolves. Other than that, I can't think of any others. Obviously, you have the Pittsburgh Pirates in Major League Baseball.
All right. Well, it's the reason I said that was because I was thinking of the Crystal Coast Booty Divers, because we just did an episode on the Booty Divers, and so we were talking pirates already. So we're going to get into that later on in this episode, Dan, because you, as the designer of this brand, will be back. I'll be speaking with Craig Warzeka, who is with the Bradenton Marauders. And then, of course, we're going to speak with Matt Frick from the Pirate Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. He was on that Crystal Coast Booty Divers episode as well. So he'll have more to say on pirates and baseball logos. And then, of course, Dan, you're going to be back with a Studio Simon Stumper.
Another triple header for me.
Another triple header.
I'm looking forward to games 2 and 3.
Welcome to the podcast, Craig Warzeka, who is the general manager for the Bradenton Marauders. Craig, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I am doing very well. You are wearing a Pirates shirt right now. The Marauders are not just affiliated with the Pirates, but are actually owned by the Pirates, yeah?
Yes, that's correct.
The Marauders nickname is obviously pirate themed, and we'll get into that a little bit. But how much of the fact that the parent club owns the team influenced the actual name of that team, this sort of pirate themed identity that you all have?
Yeah, so this is my 10th season here with the Marauders. We're in our 15th season overall as a Florida State League club and have, owned and operated by the Pirates. So I wasn't here at the conception of the team and the logo development and things of that nature, but having a pirate related identity and mascot and color scheme certainly makes a lot of sense and, ties us in to our parent club.
I'll ask you an even more basic question than that. What's a marauder? Why are you guys called the Marauders?
Yeah, it's a great question. Marauder, basically, I would describe it just like a type of pirate, essentially, and definitely having our mascot basically be a pirate. So it just makes a lot of sense, being a Pirates affiliate.
You're in a part of the country in Florida there where, piracy historically has had an influence on the area. Is there anything like specific to the region about the history of piracy there that would influence this brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. Being right off of the Gulf here definitely has a lot of pirate. We're actually the timing is kind of funny with this is we have our crew night next Friday. We've done a crew night for a few years. Long story short, there's or Hernando de Soto crew was a kind of famous pirate, and the de Soto crew actually has their I guess their headquarters basically right across the street from the ballpark. So they have a garage where they keep their pirate ship and things like that. There's a huge event, the DeSoto Parade in Bradenton every year. It's a long-standing annual tradition. I believe it's the third largest parade in the Southeast. If I
Wow.
don't quote me on that, but I believe it's Mardi Gras, Gasparilla in Tampa, which is a huge pirates invasion basically in January in Tampa every year, and we're about 45 minutes south of Tampa. So, the whole kind of Gulf Coast, West Coast of Florida, there's a lot of pirate kind of activities. But it's cool. There's two main crews. There's the Soto crew and then the Anna Maria Island privateers. So they're both involved with our crew night coming up next Friday.
We were talking before we got on here. When I reached out to you earlier this year, you were in the midst of spring training. Obviously, the ballpark where the Marauders play is the Pirates spring training facility. How much of a factor is the Pirates brand on the ballpark where you all play?
Yeah, so the ballpark here at Lecon Park is a very historic ballpark. It's been here since 1923. Third oldest ballpark that a major league game is played in behind Fenway and Wrigley.
Wow.
So Pirates have been here a long time, since 1969. Ballpark's been here a long time. Marauders, a little less time, but 15 seasons. We've kind of, established ourselves in the community as well. But a lot of overlap just in, again, the brand, the identity, the signage. There's stuff we do that's like dual branded, dual logos. That's Pirates and Marauders, stuff that's maybe more of a fixed sign or a kind of asset at the ballpark that will be up throughout both. So there's some of that, and then some is specific to spring training or specific to the Marauder season. But I think our goal is that it's when you come to a game, that it's the home of both the Pirates and the Marauders.
So, I grew up in the Philadelphia area. I'm a Phillies fan. When I go to spring training for the Phillies, they've got all the Threshers stuff there, and so it's fun for me because I like minor league baseball. It's fun for me to sort of pick up, the Phillies minor league branded stuff. Is there a mark or a logo that the Marauders have that seems to appeal to the major league fans, the folks who are there for spring training?
Well, that's actually an interesting question because we developed we call it the Bradenton script logo. It is the same font as the Pittsburgh script, which is very popular because it definitely ties the two brands together as, the Southern home, but it's a Marauders logo that's on a Marauders jersey. And that we introduced all last year, so it's still relatively new. So the fans have definitely gravitated towards that logo.
I have to say, when I was in Clearwater last year, it really was like you said, Pittsburgh South there. Like Clearwater really was like Philly South, and especially because the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Like it was just, I mean, it was sort of madness for Phillies fans in Clearwater there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really call it the Southern home. And I think they do, it's kind of the term. That's not just the spring training home, but it's really the Southern home, like more of a year-round kind of term.
Yeah, the B in Bradenton really, evokes that Pirates P in that script for sure. Looking at the other marks, you've got a big bearded pirate, but then you also have a couple different versions of this, like skull and crossbones with the eye patch. I associate the team with the sort of round faced bearded pirate, but this skull and crossbones one is pretty cool as well. Is there a fan favorite there?
No, that's a great point. So the Marauder, we obviously the full primary, we kind of call it the Marty head, which is, like Marty head without the word mark. So we use that a lot. We use the B a lot because what's interesting about someone had told me, and I didn't even notice it, but the P, the Pirate's P is actually like within the B. So
Hmm,
it's like that's the same kind of like edges. That's pretty neat.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. And the skull and crossbones, we don't, that's probably the third that we use, especially that we've introduced the script.
Mhm.
That's kind of taken a little bit more than the skull and crossbones.
This brand that ties so closely to Parent Club brand, that seems like plenty to build on. Enough so that you don't really need like a lot of these, a lot of minor league teams are doing alternate brands, they're doing alternate identities, the food-based, the Copa. The Bradenton Marauders don't really delve into too much of that so far as I remember. Is there a reason you stick mostly to that, that primary brand and really focus on that?
Yeah, I think the Bradenton script was a way for us to kind of do that without straying away from the color scheme and from
Mhm.
the kind of black and gold, but a way for us to introduce a new logo that fans were going to get excited about. So that was a lot of fun and for us, and that was say successful. We do Copa, which is Barba Negras, which is Blackbeards in
Okay.
Spanish. Totally different color scheme. It's like a teal and very bright, like a green and teal. So that's totally, different than the black and gold, obviously. So we launched that back in 2019. We're excited about launching the Bradenton Nine Devils last year, which will have a full logo set that our Pittsburgh team developed. That's going to be more in like a black and red kind of color scheme. That was a Negro League team that played in Bradenton in the 30s to the 50s. So kind of a retro look. So that'll be introduced for 2026. So excited about that as well.
Two sort of overarching questions for you here, and then I'll let you get out of here. One, you have a pirate themed identity, you have the yellow and black colors, but the Marauders made the very good decision, in my opinion, and I think in most minor league fan opinions, not to go with the parent club's team, right? Like you're not the St. Lucie Mets. Philosophically, organizationally, for you as the general manager, why is it important for the team to have its own identity, even though it's there at the Pirate Spring Training Club and all that?
To me, it's in my opinion, it's like the best of both worlds where you've got your own identity, where it's tied to, similar kind of it's pirate related, same color scheme, but we're able to have our own identity. So I think from a marketing standpoint, what we do in the community, it's a lot of what we do is pirates and marauders, and it just works. There's not confusion around, well, is this spring training or is this, what is what is this basically? We have the Florida Complex League, which used to be the Gulf Coast League, is their namesake moniker is the Pirates. So it's just a way to kind of separate, and I think it when you're marketing it and when you're educating fans on what this is of single A baseball, Florida State League baseball, I think, and just from other aspects like merchandise and things like that, I think it's nice having your own identity.
All right, and the last question sort of dovetails with that, which is the Florida State League. Obviously, the teams there do share their facilities with their parent clubs. Doesn't exist in the Cactus League, right? Like there is no minor league in Arizona during the regular season. It's, really the only league out there that has this relationship with the parent club. Is branding for the teams, not just the Marauders, all the teams in the Florida State League, is it a different kind of challenge? Is it a different kind of thing for Florida State League teams than it is in the rest of minor league baseball?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Florida State League is very unique in many ways. This is my 10th season here. I spent parts of 5 seasons with the Phillies in Clearwater. So most majority of my career, 15 years, has been in the Florida State League. I did spend a summer up in what was the Lakewood Blue Claws, is now the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. So kept the name, but did a rebrand. Outside of that, most of my time has been in the Florida State League. Being with the Phillies, I knew they were the Clearwater Phillies at one point. I remember they did like retro, they were able to kind of do retro and like throwback, kind of like brought back that logo of the Clearwater Phillies. but I was there when they were the Threshers. And, I've kind of seen that where they used to be the parent club identity and then developed their own. But yeah, Florida State League, like I said, is very unique. But in my experience, being in Clearwater, being in Bradenton, really long-standing histories and relationships with those communities, and it really makes it a year-round operation, a year-round partnership with the city, with the county, having spring training, and then the Florida State League season, and then the off season is pretty pretty short, and then you're always getting ready for the next season. But we really do a lot with our mascot, Marty the Marauder, and he's really out in front, and he's at like majority of the events in town and the community, and we're super active during like the holiday season and having Marty out to all those events. So I think, it just helps kind of stay top of mind, 12 months a year that we're promoting the Pirates, but also the Marauders.
Awesome. Well, Craig, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you hopping on. Like I said, we set this up months ago, so it's nice to finally get to meet you. Where can people find you guys online?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's BradentonMarauders.com. And then we're on all of the social media platforms as well with Bradenton Marauders.
That's easy. Brand synergy. Craig, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Dan Simon of Studio Simon, the Louisville-based design firm responsible for so many great logos in minor league baseball. Dan, hello again. How are you?
Hello again. I am still fantastic. Thank you.
The Bradenton Marauders is a really fun brand that you created, and there's a lot visually to talk about here. So if you don't mind, Dan, I am ready to jump in and talk Marauders.
Jump right in.
All right. We were talking in the intro, Dan, about how I am just back from Baseball Palooza. One of our stops, in fact, the first stop, was at the South Bend Cubs. Although we didn't get to see the South Bend Cubs because they were playing as the Malmo Oat Milkers, which, as you know, I find distasteful as a promotion across all of minor league baseball. And not because I don't like oat milk. I like oat milk just fine, Dan. Anyway, the South Bend Cubs, I feel like if you wore a South Bend Cubs shirt to a Chicago Cubs game, someone would have to be paying pretty close attention to realize that that was the minor league team's shirt and not the Chicago Cubs shirt. Whereas with this Bradenton Marauders brand here, it shares the colors of the parent club, and typographically, I guess there's some similarity, but it really stands on its own as as an identity for a team that you wouldn't confuse it. Like if I wore a Bradenton Marauders t-shirt with that Pirate Guy logo on it to a Pittsburgh Pirates game, I don't think it would look like I was wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates shirt. And part of that, of course, is the team name, right? The South Bend Cubs. My South Bend Cubs t-shirt says Cubs on it. But
I get where you're going with this.
There's a line somewhere, Dan, where like the identity becomes the team's own rather than just being based on the parent clubs. So how did you find that line for this brand?
Well, here's the difference. To your point, and you bring up a good one about the South Bend Cubs. I was wearing a South Bend Cubs t-shirt here in Louisville. I was walking my dog, and somebody in my neighborhood saw me wearing that shirt and said, "Hey, are you from Chicago?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, but you're a Cubs fan." And I said, "Well, yeah, but," and I got where he was going. I said, "But this is not the Chicago Cubs. This is their high A affiliate, the South Bend Cubs." And when I was doing the South Bend Cubs identity, the primary logo I initially did not look like the Chicago Cubs primary logo. And we went a few rounds on that. And then the team kind of pivoted and said, "You know what? We now want our primary logo to look like the Cubs logo, the Chicago Cubs logo, that is, because they're the Cubs as well." And so it does. So when you look at that on my t-shirt, it does look like the Chicago Cubs logo. However, when we were doing the Bradenton Marauders identity, they wanted this to look like it was birthed from the Pittsburgh Pirates. They wanted it to be in that family, but they were not looking to mimic anything as specifically as we did some of the elements in the South Bend Cubs brand identity. So all of the elements of the Bradenton Marauders identity can stand on their own without being mistaken for a Pittsburgh Pirates thing. You mentioned that the lettering style has some similarities, and it does, but it does not directly mimic the Pittsburgh Pirates lettering style. Okay.
One of the main differences, of course, is that the Bradenton Marauders brand is centered around this character who has nothing to do with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's completely unique to Bradenton. Is this character based on anyone specific, or is he meant to be just sort of a more of a generic pirate character?
Well, when you say that, if you look at images of pirates, you'll see, when I say images, oftentimes they've got beards, they've got eye patches, they're wearing an earring, they're wearing a particular kind of hat or bandana, although in the case of the Bradenton Marauders, there's no bandana. There is one with the Erie Seawolves. And so it's not so much, it's not based on any pirate specifically, but it is definitely based on what you will stereotypically see a pirate depicted as.
When you were creating that Seawolves brand, I remember you created one that had like a sort of a skull, and they thought it was too scary, and they shelved it, and then they eventually brought it back a decade later. There is a version of this Bradenton Marauders logo that is a skull with an eye patch wearing the same, pirate hat, and he's got a couple of baseball bats behind him mimicking the skull and crossbones. Is that one that was created along with the primary identity? And you're sort of squinching your face a little bit. Is that one that you did as well?
I did do that. And
Okay.
the squinching, as you describe it, is because you mentioned he's wearing a hat, and I don't think he's wearing a hat. However, maybe they created a version of the skull wearing a hat. I don't remember doing one with the skull wearing a hat. That's not important. The fact is, there is a skull in the brand identity, and that came from the first round presentation where I gave them several different options to choose from. And there was one where instead of the pirate character, there is a skull. And they liked the skull, wanted the character as the focal point of the identity and to be used in the primary logo, but they also wanted the skull included as a secondary logo.
You mentioned the typography because I mentioned the typography, and we said how it evokes the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it is not the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's very ornate. It has a very specific feeling about it. I love the cap logo B, and then you also have Marauders in that font. What sort of research do you do when you're developing a custom typeface like that for something that has a specific historical record? Like, do you go into, I don't know, pirate history, pirate documents to find inspiration for these fonts? Or is it more sort of an intuitive, you're creating something that feels like it would look like a pirate font?
Well, it all depends. I'm going to answer your question specifically with regard to the development of this brand identity, but in general, if you're looking for inspiration for anything, whether it's typography or characters or whatever, colors and patterns and all manner of things that might get used in a brand identity system, if it's something tangible, like speaking of the South Bend Cubs, when I was doing their identity, the research I was doing into that involved looking at anything regarding the Studebaker Car Company, because Studebakers were made in South Bend. As a matter of fact, that's where their previous name came from. The Silverhawks was a Studebaker model car.
I didn't know that, Dan.
Well, there you go. And even though they were moving away from being called the Silverhawks, we still wanted things that were specific to South Bend. And there's a lettering style which is used for both the road jersey lettering. I know we're talking about the Bradenton Marauders, but I'm going to talk to you about the difference between a project like where I have something tangible like I did with South Bend versus what the case was with the Bradenton Marauders. So anyway, I found signage that had a certain style of lettering in it, Studebaker signage. And I used that font. I had to recreate it myself, but I used that font for the lettering South Bend on the road jersey. And also it's the lettering around the circle where it says South Bend in the primary logo. So I had something specific to use. Now, when I was doing the research for the Marauders brand identity, there's not a lot of things existing that with typography in them from a real pirate ship or maybe letters written by pirates or whatever. There's that script writing, maybe like you might see that, with a quill pen kind of look, that potentially could have been used for this, but you're not going to find specific examples of lettering from actual pirates or pirate ships or pirate ephemera. But what you are going to find a lot of is signage and stuff like the Pirates of the Caribbean signage at Disney World and Disneyland, and other just things that people are making that's pirate themed. And so you put together a mood board of things maybe other people have done. None of what I did was copied off of that, but there's already a visual mood created for pirate visuals, both typography and pirates and ships and all manner of, again, pirate ephemera that's out there. You put together a mood board with all that stuff, and then you develop your own unique version of what people associate visually with pirates.
I appreciate that. And I think the magic of graphic design is the ability to take these sort of ideas about what type should look and feel like and actually translate that into something physical, because that's the magic part, Dan. And that's why you are the world famous minor league baseball graphic designer. And the rest of us are just out here visiting your studio and doing podcasts about it.
You're employed a little bit of hyperbole there. Not exactly world famous, known in my industry perhaps, but I think you went a little bit too far there.
The one last thing I wanted to ask you about the logo, Dan, was the one of the very obvious connections to the Pittsburgh Pirates is the yellow and black. I'm always sort of curious, right? Like unless you hold them side by side, and even then it's sort of hard to tell because of how the colors are manifested or produced or whatever. Did you use the actual Pantone color from the Pittsburgh Pirates, or was it more of were you given the direction of like, we want this to be yellow and black, and it's not the exact yellow? I assume the black is going to be the same, but long question short, Dan, is that yellow the exact same yellow as the Pittsburgh Pirates, or is it different?
Well, I have a great podcast-friendly answer to your question.
I can't wait.
I don't remember. I don't remember. What I can tell you about that is when it comes to things like the cap, their home cap, I don't know if they've since changed it, but it was a solid black cap. So black is black. The Pirates black is going to be the same as the Marauders black. But the same goes, I know we did an alternate cap that had a yellow crown and a black bill, like the 1970s Pittsburgh Pirates. And that yellow is going to match the Pittsburgh Pirates yellow because that's what New Era offers. But I don't remember if the specific Pantone color was for the yellow is the one that the Pirates use. If it's not, it's awful darn close.
Is that something where you might have made the decision as the designer? Maybe you started with that Pantone color, but then you as a designer felt like a different yellow might have worked better with the work that you were doing, and you're just at your liberty to make that change?
That happens sometimes. That you actually bring up. It's not like it's a good question, but it brings up. I don't mean that like that. It's a bad question. I it's kind of a thing when somebody asks somebody something and then you go, well, that's a good question. It's like, well, yeah, it should be. Paul, you are a very good podcast host and you ask good questions. So to say it's a good question, yes, it is, but it's also one that is something that I have to deal with a lot. And let me give you an example. The New York Yankees, their baseball cap is the darker of the two navies, the cap fabric that is, the darker of the two navies that New Era offers. And some people, I have heard people actually say to me, they thought that the Yankees cap was black. That's how dark it is.
Mhm.
But their Pantone color in all of their logos is 289, which is a navy blue, but it's nowhere near the color that the cap fabric is.
Hmm.
It's a genuine navy blue. It looks blue. It does not, you'll never mistake that navy blue for black. So I can tell you this, when I did the Charleston River Dogs brand update, I didn't use 289. I used a darker blue that actually sometimes looks almost black. When I was recently doing the Oklahoma City Comets brand identity, I did not use the Dodgers blue because if you look at their Pantone blue compared to their royal blue cap fabric, the cap fabric is considerably darker than the Pantone color. So what I used in that case, I didn't try to match the cap fabric because that would actually kind of look almost navy. So I used something kind of in between the color of the cap fabric and the Dodgers official Pantone color. Now, when you look at the Oklahoma City Comets brand identity, you don't look at it and go, well, that doesn't look like the Dodgers until you hold a Dodgers logo right next to a Oklahoma City Comets logo. You wouldn't know I didn't use Dodger blue.
It's the magic of graphic design, Dan. We keep saying it. This is some real Pantone color theory, graphic design nerdery, and I love it. Dan, thank you so much.
And I'm looking forward to coming back shortly. See you in a bit.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Matt Frick, who is the curator with the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum in Florida. Matt, good morning. How you doing? Welcome back.
Good morning. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you back again. Last time you were on, we were talking about the Crystal Coast Booty Divers up in North Carolina. Now we're a little closer to home for you. We're in Florida. It's the Bradenton Marauders who we're talking about, not terribly far in the grand scheme of things
Right.
from St. Augustine. I want to start just sort of with a point of comparison there with Crystal Coast. We were, that's you're out there on the Atlantic Ocean. With Bradenton, you're on the Gulf of Mexico. What is the difference in the pirate culture, the pirate history in those two parts of the world?
The pirate history on the East Coast is definitely more rich
Hmm.
with the amount of pirates that operated there, especially with the access to the Caribbean and then the shipping lanes going to Spain and everything. Whereas the Gulf of Mexico, not as much. And a lot of this activity that happened in the Gulf of Mexico, as far as pirates, happened a little bit later. So in the late 1700s to the early 1800s. So a little bit later, there are some famous pirates in the Gulf of Mexico, and one that we'll talk about here around the Tampa Bay area, which Bradenton's right off of.
Well, let's jump right into that. They have a very distinctive character that their brand is centered around. Do we know specifically who that character is, or is it a generic pirate?
It's a generic pirate. They came up with it from what I could see was after in 2010 when that minor league team was taken over by the Pittsburgh Pirates. It made sense for them. They wanted to have something similar, so their colors are like it. But they do have a character that is a pirate's head, and he's got crossed baseball bats on his tricorn, so as opposed to a skull and crossbones. And then the guy's actually wearing an eye patch as well. So uh, I think they did a good job with it. I think it looks really neat.
Is there is there anything that you're seeing there that's, sort of pop culture, tropes about pirates and not really reflective of authentic pirate culture? I mean, I know that's an unfair question for a baseball logo because it's meant to be sort of a caricature, but are there things in this logo that are sort of perpetuations of tropes rather than, actual parts of pirate, lore?
I'd say, probably the eye patch for one. Um, so the most pirates only wore an eye patch if you got your eyes shot out and you needed to wear it. But it has come into pop culture, and everywhere you go, if you're gonna buy a pirate costume or something, there's always an eye patch included with it. But that makes it a little more fun, for them. And like I said, it is recognizable.
Absolutely, for sure. The characters you said, so there are famous pirates who were there on the Gulf side of Florida. Who are those iconic pirate characters for that part of the country?
The ones that stand out are Jean and Pierre Lafitte, out of Louisiana. Barataria, they had their own little area called, and they actually helped Andrew Jackson during a war there. So they are the most famous ones, but pirates did operate in that area, mainly with access to Mexico in that area. But it is believed there's about 3 months in the timeline of Blackbeard that are missing. And so it's believed that he actually was operating in the Gulf of Mexico at the time. There's no proof to it because we don't know of any landings that he did there and stuff, but it fits from where we know he was until we saw him again. So about 3 months. So he could have operated there for sure. The most famous one, I guess, in that area, particularly around Tampa Bay, and so hence why the Bradenton Marauders probably took on this symbol was a man named Jose Gaspar. And so he's the impetus for the 1923, they started a huge pirate festival down in Tampa Bay called Gasparilla. But the problem is that he's not real. He's a mythical pirate.
Ah,
But I mean, that's how much people love pirates and stuff. And if you're in an area where they could have operated. And like I said, Jose Gaspar has been a legend for so long that he was actually included in books about real pirates, like maybe on accident because nobody in the early 1900s actually fact check anything. They just went off of what they heard before. So I imagine that's where they got it, but also it doesn't hurt that you're affiliated with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So they've been around a lot longer. So
this is a question I did not prepare you for at all. And I've never really thought of it. I grew up on the Philadelphia side of Pennsylvania,
hmm.
a Phillies fan, lifelong, still to this day. The Pittsburgh Pirates were always sort of a fact of life for me. It occurs to me they are 6 hours inland. Is there any reason at all why a team in Pittsburgh might be called the Pirates?
It's funny that you asked that because I was thinking of it this morning, the same thing. Because the city of Philadelphia was definitely a big part of pirate history during the golden age of piracy. Up there, pirates operated there, they were hunted down there. So it was definitely a huge part of it. Why Pittsburgh? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe somebody said, well, this is cool, we're close,
right.
Uh,
I mean, at least with like a team like the Erie Seawolves, they're there on the Great Lakes. So it's an interesting question for me anyway. As someone who grew up in Philadelphia, I didn't know that pirates had a rich history in that part of the country. Like for us, it's all Revolutionary War and the Liberty Bell and all that sort of
right.
thing. So, are there parts of the country where people would be surprised to learn that there's a rich pirate history that's not really talked about?
That's hard to say. I mean, possibly over on the West Coast
Mm,
of California, because the early pirates were raiding the Spanish colonies in what's now South America, all the way up the West Coast. So there are parts where they might not have gone much further than Baja California, which is in Mexico, or what's now, say, called San Diego or something like that. But like I said, that was a lot earlier, and most of the people that were pirates like that were privateers. So they were fighting for England by raiding all these Spanish colonies, and that definitely included all of Mexico. And so they would go in South America all the way up the west coast of it. So a lot of people don't think of that because that's not during what we call the golden age of piracy, really. So those people were not affiliated with people like Blackbeard or Jack Rackham or Anne Bonny or anything like that. So because of that, and it's not the Caribbean, so people are just going to ignore it.
What, roughly speaking, what are the dates around the golden era of piracy?
It's generally from about 1680 to 1724 is what it's called, but it's, give or take years on either side of that.
Sure.
It's people dispute it. I don't think they dispute it too much other than they just have their own idea of when it started and when it ended.
I wanted to ask about bringing it back to the Bradenton Marauders here. This word marauder, obviously, all negative connotations. It's about stealing and plundering. Is it a word that is, you're someone who deals with pirate history every single day. Is that a word that you hear interchanged with pirate or used as a synonym for pirate, or were they just trying to come up with something that was not their parent club's name?
Well, I think two, both of those. So, one is not the pirates, but there are some things, writings and documents where they will describe pirates as marauders for it, but it's definitely low on the list of what pirates are referred to. I'll give you that.
Okay. What are there other terms that are more common that we might see baseball teams named for?
Oh, that's a good idea or a good question. Nothing that's child friendly. So, yeah.
Okay, I like that. This team's colors, you were talking about them earlier on. They have the yellow and the black that is evocative of their parent club. Is is there something about the color yellow in particular that would be associated with pirates, or is that just a function of sports branding?
Probably sports branding, but if you went out on a limb and say the yellow is represents gold that they were after, and black the black flags that they flew under, the Jolly Roger flag, maybe that. But I guess it depends on which team in Pittsburgh came first. Was it the Pirates probably the first one? Then the Penguins, when they came, their colors are similar as well, but
Yeah.
obviously Penguins are not really associated with Pirates. Yeah.
Or yellow.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of yellow, actually. Okay. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're talking about pirate iconography. You mentioned the skull and crossbones, the Jolly Roger. Do you know the history of that flag, like how the skull and crossbones came to be the sort of recognizable sign of piracy? Was that assigned to them, or was that something pirates adopted themselves, sort of pridefully?
Now, the earliest incidents of seeing a skull and crossbones on a flag used by pirates was in the Mediterranean, and that was by the pirates from North Africa. And so these guys, the Barbary pirates, they had been pirates since about 900 AD. So when they started using it, the first Western instance of seeing it, where it was actually recorded, was in 1620, and it was a skull and crossbones known as a death's head on a green background. So it wasn't a black flag, it was a green one.
Hmm.
Because of that, everybody that was sailing on the high seas at the time knew exactly what it meant. So the pirates of the Golden Age and everything started adopting that because they're like, hey, we put this up, everybody knows exactly what's coming for them. So
Well, Matt, this is so much fun to have you back on again and to talk about another pirate-themed team. I'm sure that there are going to be more of them over the years, so I look forward to reaching back out to you. I think now that you've been on twice, you're Baseball by Design's official pirate consultant here. So, so
nice.
I appreciate you being here for that. Where can people find you and the work that you're doing with the Pirate Museum in St. Augustine?
All right, you can if you're not coming to the museum, we are right in the heart of the historic district, right across from the Castillo de San Marcos. which is a national park, and it's the oldest masonry fort in the continental United States. You can find information about the museum at www.thepiratemuseum.com. So all three words are just strung together.
And I mentioned this last time you were on for the Booty Divers episode. I have been to the museum, really fun, interactive exhibits, and I know that you have your hand in nearly everything there. So if you do get to St. Augustine, definitely go visit the Pirate Museum. It's a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
Matt, thank you so much again, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It is time, once again, for Studio Simon Stumpers. Guess who's back? It's Dan Simon of Studio Simon. Dan, how are you? You rested?
I am tanned, rested, and ready. And your listeners have heard enough of me today. So let's jump right into this Studio Simon Stumper, which today asks, which of these pirate-themed names was going to be the club's name, the Bradenton Club's name, before a last-minute pivot to Marauders?
Oh.
Did you know that there was another name that actually in the first round, when I made that, the name that's the correct answer to this Studio Simon Stumper is in the logos. So it was changed, and I can tell the reason for that change. But first, here are your three options for the correct answer. Was it A, the Bradenton Blackbeards? Was it B, the Bradenton Sparrows? Or C, the Bradenton Picaroons?
Okay. I'm gonna try to suss this out because there's no way for me to actually know the answer to this question.
The only way you could have known it is I actually thought I might have told you this story, which I'm going to tell after you give your answer. But apparently I didn't, or you forgot that I told it to you. So
either of those is possible.
I know I've told this story to others, and I thought you were one of the others. But if you were not, you're going to hear it.
It's out there in the ephemera. It's not like it just exists on your computer, and that's the only way I would know. All right, I'm going to start by eliminating the Blackbeards. And I'm going to eliminate the Blackbeards because Blackbeard did, if I recall, most of his work on the Atlantic coast rather than the Gulf Coast. And so I don't think Blackbeard was particular to Bradenton and the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm going to eliminate that. Sparrows is kind of fun, obviously, because of Jack Sparrow and the whole connection to Pirates of the Caribbean, which in my mind, Dan, has one of the all-time great soundtracks. Like I will just sit there and listen to, not a soundtrack, but score. I will just sit there and listen to the score to Pirates of the Caribbean like it's pop music. Not that I listen to a lot of pop music. So Sparrows, but I feel like that's kind of particular to that movie and not pirates in general, unless he was named Jack Sparrow because sparrows have something to do with pirates. But I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Picaroons is a lot of fun. I don't know why that would have been the name because I don't exactly know what Picaroons means, but I like it and I'm going with it.
The reason you picked that name is because that would have made a great name.
But it's not the right answer, I'm guessing, from your tone.
Not the right answer. You were correct to eliminate sparrows because it's specific to, the Disney movie, and maybe there would be trademark issues with that. But the correct answer is the Bradenton Blackbeards. And speaking of trademark issues, here's what happened.
If I had said Bradenton Blackbeards out loud, Bradenton Blackbeards would have been good too because of all those bees.
Yes, and it was the name. I'm the one that came up with that name, and I thought it was perfect for it. The alliteration, everyone. I would venture to say that Blackbeard's probably the most famous pirate out there. Jack Sparrow maybe because of the movie, but of actual pirates, Blackbeard. So anyway, the name was Blackbeards. as I mentioned, all of the first round and several subsequent rounds, the lettering said Blackbeards, not Marauders. But then when they went to do a trademark search, there was somebody who owned the trademark to Blackbeards. There was an individual in Texas who was making T-shirts with faux Blackbeard companies in it. I don't remember specifically what companies, but for instance, Blackbeard's Bar and Grill or Blackbeard's Garage. So he was making up faux Blackbeard companies, doing logos for them or artwork for some type of artwork for them and putting them on T-shirts and selling them. He had a website. Everything on the website, there was no stock available. Like everything was out of stock. The website doesn't exist anymore, and I don't think existed for. It was a failed business venture by this guy. However, he owned the trademark, and the team went to him. And one of the things I told them is, since they're owned by the Pittsburgh Pirates, I say, don't have a Pittsburgh Pirates individual contact him, because if he knows it's somebody from the Pittsburgh Pirates, he's going to see dollar signs. Well, he saw dollar signs anyway and wanted to price gouge, and he told them how much he wanted, and the Pittsburgh Pirates were not going to pay that amount of money. I don't remember what the amount was. I don't even know if they told me what it was. And so they just pivoted and changed the name. Well, first they were thinking, we're just going to change it to Redbeards. And I actually did a version of the character that you know from the Marauders identity with a red beard instead of a black beard. And then they said, you know what? That red beard notwithstanding, we're going to go with Marauders. And here we are today with the Bradenton Marauders.
Well, as the owner of a red beard myself, I can tell you probably wouldn't have been necessarily the most intimidating nickname out there. It's no one sees me coming and dives out of the way because of how intimidating I look with my red beard. But hey, give it a few years, it's going to be a white beard anyway, so I guess I shouldn't even really worry about that. So, Dan, this has been fun. We've gotten to talk a lot on this episode. The good news is, while parting is such sweet sorrow, we're going to see you again next week. So thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do for Baseball by Design. And we'll see you once again next week.
I'm looking forward to that. And in the meantime, go Pickaroons.
Pickaroons would have been great.